Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for another edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. It's in his contract. He does his own intro.
Coming at you live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name's Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. Ken, Foggy, always a pleasure.
Indeed, because to give a little behind the scenes of tonight's episode, last week we broke down Dark Art from Daredevil 11 through 14, the Charles Soule and Ron Garney run, because it ties into Daredevil Born Again, the Disney Plus smash show, which was setting monster ratings on the service as well.
It'll have you screaming by the end of it.
Oh, absolutely. And there was one moment in that premiere episode, 15 minutes in, that definitely rocked everybody to their core. And there is a little bit of speculation with it. So we're going to do something a little different here on the show. We're going to give you that spoiler warning right now. So consider us, we're talking a little spoilers about Daredevil Born Again. If you haven't seen it, in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Everybody saw that Foggy Nelson took a bullet from Bullseye and is presumably dead to kick off the show. So immediately pop culture freaked out, and rightfully so. Popular character gets killed off. It happens all the time.
I'm still throwing bad juju at someone who came up with this idea. So, shout out to Padawan J.
Yes, because Padawan J threw this out there. So salute to my co-host on the ODPH. But this also brought out a lot of speculation from the comic book fans.
That it did.
Because when I saw this happen, I immediately go, oh, wait, he's not dead. They're going to be talking about a classic story. And this is one that, if you know the lineage of Daredevil, this is a very deep dive, if you will, but it does tie into the show. So chat, super chat, throw your opinions in on the streaming show as well. We definitely like to talk about that throughout the night as well. But for tonight's episode, we are going to be taking a dive into a very classic story, Daredevil 88 from 2006 Marvel Comics. And right there on the cover, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be talking about the secret life of Foggy Nelson. So that said, Tom, what is your take about the season so far of the streaming show? And what did you think about this issue? Because we like to give that spoiler-free opinion before we deep dive into this.
Visceral. Like the show right now, having those 2 episodes out and feeling where Matt's at, because I think that this is one of the few Marvel shows where you really transcend the screen and you get the actors feeling in raw emotion. It is like you feel it at the end of episode 2 where, Matt had to do what he had to do. You felt just as bad as he did because he had to take those actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even going to talk about, what happened in the first episode, because I'm still reeling on it. Like it's almost Gambit level. Remember that?
Yes.
Level for me right now. And then to come into this book, which I had no clue about because, we have a Ken.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the book, since right now my mind is in a very dark place. To read a book that it itself is also in a dark place, really does shine a light on what's happening in Daredevil, or hopefully, or might happen in Daredevil. So all in all, I'm here. I'm loving it. And give me more.
Yeah, I really think that this was a very cool story if they're going to go there, because it is heavily rumored that Foggy Nelson will be back on season 2 of Daredevil Born Again when they do that next year. So in the meantime, there's so much speculation going around with this, and especially with the shot of Foggy, Karen, and Matt leaving their law firm. The address on there is 468, ties into where this would be in the legacy. So there's a lot of Easter eggs pointing the direction to this show. So we definitely have to think about this as we're going through.
Oh, yeah.
So we are going to be talking spoilers about this, and this is one that really has impressed me about this as well. Because, I mean, it's at Brubaker, David Ha. I mean, perfect Daredevil in my opinion.
Well, at the same time, this is also monumentous for us here on Turn a Page too, because this is the only time that we've really done back-to-back character stories.
Yeah, we don't dip into that too often. There's so much variety out there, and plus we do have interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. That we don't like to go back to back too often, but this is one that we listen to you, the audience, and you really wanted to talk about it, so we're going to deep dive into Daredevil 88. So we gave our spoiler-free talk from here on out. Throw your picks in for the show tonight. Throw your picks in for this book, like where you're going with, because immediately we have to say there's a lot happening in this book.
Yes.
Because right from the jump, Foggy Nelson is in witness relocation, and Daredevil is on the run. There's stuff going on, and we see that there's a call to Ben Urich, who obviously is not on the Disney Plus show.
No, but his niece is.
His niece is. So there's that tie back there, and one Foggy Nelson is trying to get a hold of him.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, he can't.
Click.
Because why?
FBI.
Yes. He is in witness relocation. So this is a very cool moment here because obviously with Foggy, you're seeing him trying to hide his truth from everybody else. He's trying to be kept alive because he's a witness.
Yep.
And it's that kind of psychological play that he can't contact anybody and he has to fade away because he has to protect Matt.
Yep. Now, do you want to give everybody a little bit of context on why he's in there?
Let's do it.
You're the one.
Well, because obviously he was in there because
He's the guy.
Well, I figured you were going to jump in there because this was all arranged by the Kingpin's wife, Vanessa, because obviously there's some stuff going on, and thus if he needs to protect Matt Murdock, who's on the run, well, he had to take the fall.
Yep.
And it's kind of that weird sense of what is playing out here, but it's one that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And as it starts moving forward, we get a little shot of how this is all starting to wear on Foggy. And the art from Aha here, I mean, what can you say?
It's beautiful. I mean, you look at that third page right there. One, Stilt Man.
Yes.
Okay, which you theorize that's going to be who Matthew Lillard's going to be.
That's my guess.
And I after looking at it and thinking about it, seeing it on these pages, I have to very strongly agree with this.
Yeah.
I think that he would play a little more comical, but to see how in Foggy's mind reminiscing about Matt, he's just focusing on Matt. Everything is red. Even Foggy's bow tie is red because everything just needs to stand out. He is so in his head right now, trying to convince himself that he's doing the right thing. It's a wonderful, self-indulgence of oneself.
Well, you have to think about it in this context. Foggy Nelson is always a side character, a non-role playing character, if you will. And in this manner, you really get to see a lot more layers to him.
Like an onion.
Yeah. Because, I mean, obviously he's been a loyal friend to Matt, even though Matt Murdock is very questionable with his friends. Let's face it, but it comes with the guilt that he always does. And to see Foggy kind of reminiscing and going through his head about like why he's doing this. He's like, I was stabbed. I was scared out of my mind. And, to protect Matt. And like, now I have to do this, but now I don't think this will ever get understand until Matt comes back.
Yep.
And if he doesn't come back, then he's in trouble. And then it kind of goes down this hole. But as we start seeing too, and I'm going to throw the graphic back up, when we start seeing the artwork, especially here on the right, and the vision of Daredevil fighting Bullseye, and even with that little shot with Stiltman, who I called it. I'm saying that's going to be Matthew Lillard.
It's a stretch. I'm just saying.
Yes, but even seeing that, but going to the next panel there too, and you do see just how this is wearing in on Foggy. And to see him like come to that realization, he's like, I'm not a coward, but I'm not a coward, but I'm not very brave. And as you're seeing how like he's handling this,
yep,
like it's a very cool moment to see really kind of stretch and play out. And when this goes down, like I say, that's where it really starts throwing things.
It does. And the great thing is that the art imitates what Foggy's going through. There's a lot of dark tones. There's a lot of shading. There's a lot of heaviness going on. David Aha's, particular style is not very, what's the best word? It's rough and in a good way because it's showing the turmoil. It's showing the emotion. It's not as smooth as you want it to be. There's no gradients. It's very right there in your face.
Well, that's what you need to do with Daredevil.
Absolutely.
Like for any street level hero, you really need to add that grittiness, that toughness,
right.
that really reflects their working environment. And Hell's Kitchen is a very rough spot for Daredevil. I mean, there's no punches pulled. It's a very merciless environment to be crime fighting in.
Absolutely.
And I really like how this was brought out into the forefront here, because you need to do that and establish that. And that's why I think where the art goes here, and especially where Brubaker takes this character as well. Because I always think the greatest Daredevil creative teams really push the envelope of, how far you can break Matt Murdock, but how much it will break everybody around him, because that's where his focus always shifts to. Even when he does the swashbuckling stuff, which, I mean, it granted that he's Stan Lee in his prime. And even like the more lighthearted kind of takes, so to speak, that you've seen throughout the years too, they all kind of tie back to that central demographic of Daredevil, because to pull that out and really establish that, I think is where things strike.
Would you, for lack of a better pun, would you say that, Daredevil's immediate chosen family is his cane that holds him up? Walking stick, per se?
You have to think, like, he relies on the strength of them to carry him through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Foggy and Karen have always been, very integral parts of him. Obviously, from Stick and growing up, he's had to really rely on them. And I think Foggy takes a lot of the burden for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a fair thing.
No, not
by
at all.
any stretch, but Foggy has done that, even though it's caused tension between the pair throughout the years. And I think that's what makes their dynamics so unique, is it's not really a one based off like a good-hearted nature. It's more of like a reliance.
Codependency.
Yeah, it has to be, because I think for what Matt pushes Foggy through quite often, and vice versa, because Foggy gets himself in a little trouble here and there, you really start seeing this go through.
And Foggy also relies on Matt to be his sounding board. He's his inner voice. He becomes his own inner strength. There's that little Daredevil on his shoulder, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Especially in this situation.
Yeah. So as we start seeing it go through, we do see Foggy as kind of, eyeballing what is going on. And especially like after he's reliving a lot of things that are going on too. And like I say, the coloring that was happening in these sequences too is so top level. We have to really put that into perspective as well. Because when you're seeing all these images play out, especially in the red here, and I didn't dabble too much into it, but there's more sequences in, even tying back to other series, which I don't want to spoil because I know I'm catching a lot of heat online, because I keep mentioning one of the books that you want to watch for this show is the Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada Guardian Devil. And I know that something happens to another character on the show. I've mentioned it once. I'll say it again.
But I think it got twisted into this version. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's twisted in version, but you're seeing that come into play here. And I think when you see that pop in, it really is amplifying what the stakes are when you're around Daredevil, and even the pressure he puts on himself. And you're seeing that bump in on Foggy, because now he's just doing that inner monologue, like, I'm still in protective custody. I'm still keeping your secrets. Like he's doing this for him. And to see how that's all shaping up as we're watching this sequence go into effect, you're really seeing the mental toll it's taking on Foggy. And I love how Brubaker sets this up.
It's fantastic. One of my favorite things, especially in these panels right here, that again, going back to the one all the way at the right at the bottom, the fact that only 1/3 of it is Foggy in the light and the other 2/3 of it is him in complete darkness.
Yeah.
Like that just shows where he's at mentally and what he doesn't have going on behind him either. There's no support there. He's lost it all.
Oh yeah, no, he's completely lost it. And it's something that now he's fully on his own as he's getting told about his new identity that he's going to have to do whether he wants to or not. And to see how he's like, well, you're Everett from Jersey. And he's like, no. He's like, well, why? When he's talking with the agent, it's going that back and forth too. And then he keeps saying, well, if I'm a target, what about Matt's wife at the time? Because Matt is married at this time. It's one part of the storyline that's going on here. And they're like, well, you're the bigger fish here, so to speak. That is sort of like, yeah, no matter what happens, it's going to come center right back to you, to kind of paraphrase a little bit. And the more this is getting driven into Foggy, the more it's kind of wearing on his soul a bit. And I love how this is kind of tearing into him.
Oh, yeah.
Because we always think of like, he's supposed to be so heroic, but I mean, he's just a normal man just trying to come up with this and just realizing he's in way over his head.
And then some.
Yeah, because you can even see on the right panel up here too, at that bottom, where he's saying, I'm Jersey by the shore. You see the brokenness in his face. And it's a moment that you're just sitting there going like, whoa. Like that's where I think it really sinks in that he's lost his hope, that everything he's doing, like it's now sinking in, the stakes are that high. And I love seeing this play out.
And the fact that, and the face is one thing, but even his posture,
Yeah.
the slumped shoulders, the neck is down, the like just the loss of hope.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And that's just those little tiny things that you pick up on when you get a great book like this.
Yeah. And then you go right to the next scene where, well, it's been tipped off where Foggy is. Because let's face it, Daredevil has some enemies.
No.
I know, right?
Never.
So this is where you start seeing that they were tipped off about what safe house Foggy's in. And they're kind of making a play that they're going to wait for the word. And there's, more or less tying into what Daredevil's doing. And you're seeing how Foggy is now kind of at the mercy of his agent. But then comes in someone else that you see, oh, well, Pullman is there. And you know that something's not right with him. And it's kind of feeding in about Mike Murdoch has taken off because there is that side identity that Matt has dabbled in a little bit. So he's obviously on the run, covering his own tracks. And that's something that, Daredevil has had to do from time to time. He's no saint, folks. He's a devil for a reason.
He is the devils of Hell's Kitchen.
We have to remember this. So
with a lot of Irish Catholic guilt.
Yeah. But as we're seeing this, Foggy's picking up on the scene. And then he's making the escape out the window. And Tom, when you're seeing this play out, I mean, what's going through your mind?
I get it. Foggy has a fight or flight response, and 9 out of 10 times it's flight, but that's usually into a corner and not out a window.
Yeah. I mean, super chat, throw your picks in about this. Like, what's your sense here as you're seeing Foggy escape? And he's blaming Matt the entire time. He's like, Matt, I can't believe I'm doing this. What's this come to? Like, who do you think I am?
Exactly.
Like I say, so this is all centering around his emotions toward Matt and him being the loyal friend where he shouldn't be.
Like, it's all Matt's fault why he's in this situation. And now he's getting out of this situation to another situation, but it's still all Matt's fault. I'm still going to be mad at Matt because it's all Matt's fault, even though I'm here because I made the choice.
Yeah.
But it's Matt's fault.
Yeah. But it's perfect of how it plays, except when he tries making that set escape. And then that's where he gets himself into a little bit of trouble. Because as he goes, he jumps in a cab and somebody's waiting there. And the cab driver immediately says, where are you going, Mr. Nelson? So a little job right here that should have been very easy to follow, like I say, has now turned into a very complicated employment, if you will.
Well, all I'm going to say is, at what point did they still have yellow cabs that looked like this back in the mid 2000s? Right there, that's the huge yellow flag to me.
It's a throwback. I mean, you have to remember it's 2006, but it's a difference. But let's say it comes with a job, it comes with a turf. And as we're seeing here, that Foggy is now getting taken against his will. He's dropped off more or less into a junkyard, and this is where things really escalate, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because he's basically, who are these people? And he's drug out of the cab, and you're seeing that everybody is eagerly anticipating to get their hands on Foggy. And in this moment, you see the hand has shown up.
Yes.
And there is a wild fight sequence going on.
I don't say it's a wild fight sequence. It was a one-handed, one-sided fight.
Yeah, but the panels there, brutal.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely brutal. Like, you're having hands cut off. You're like,
ninja stuff.
They went down to business, but that is something that plays into this mythos as well, because everybody knows Daredevil has a long, complicated history with the hand. So to see Foggy involved with it, it's one that makes a lot of sense, first and foremost, because as he's just in the cab there, he's saying he has to call Ben Urich, he has to call Dakota North. He's trying to get help no matter what, because he's in way over his head. And I think he realizes that, and especially now seeing this sequence where he is completely not prepared for, as we're seeing, like, just watching him just unfold like this, it's a make or break moment.
Because what's better than mafia? Ninjas.
Yeah. And especially to see who is responsible for him, because we do find out that the order was given by one Elektra to save him.
And like, come on.
Yeah. So as we're seeing this play out, it's a big moment.
And with their complicated history, Daredevil and Elektra's, very complicated history, on again, off again. She's Daredevil, he's Daredevil, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, folks, spoilers. It's been long enough.
Yeah.
To see that she still has Foggy's back in some way, shape, or form, that says a lot also to her character.
Well, I think it's more so not to Foggy, but I think it's more to Daredevil. and knowing that Foggy is doing this for him.
Yeah.
Like I say, we don't find out till later that Vanessa's behind the scenes with this, which ties into what they're doing on the show. Because we do know on the show, there's a marital problem between Fisk and Vanessa. We saw earlier in that first episode,
Yep.
Vanessa was trying to pull a deal down. Fisk was not exactly too happy with it. So that's where I think this is coming into play, that Vanessa is such an evil character. We have to remember that would she try setting up her own husband like in this manner by hiring Bullseye to take out Foggy Nelson, or set up him to go in protective custody to put his main assassin away? Like, how deep level is that? Super chat. Let us know what you're thinking about that. But Tom, throwing that on you, what are you thinking?
She's 3 steps ahead. Like, honestly, you think about it. The Kingpin can only move, or technically the King can only move one block at a time. The Queen can go as far as she can.
Mm-hmm. But
chess reference.
But it all plays out though,
Mhm.
because seeing this unfold like this, it makes more sense on the show that this would happen.
Yep.
And when Foggy slows his heart down enough, like I say, he might technically be dead when Matt picks up on that.
And that's okay too.
Yeah, because that's what happened when he was stabbed, because the same thing happened.
Oh, no. I'm okay if he's dead.
Oh, yeah. Well, if Foggy is dead, it makes more sense for the character, but I don't think he is. I think they're going to borrow bits and pieces from this, which makes sense.
Yeah, cherry pick from all the stories, because, I mean, has there ever been a bad Daredevil run?
Yeah, but not recently, I will say.
In the lexicon of Daredevilness, okay? 99% all great.
I would say 90.
Okay.
I'll say 90. I would say this. When Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada took the book over for the Marvel Knights, that's when you really saw a lot of focus being put on it. Nothing against the great creators beforehand.
Nope.
But I think for where we were going in that run, I think you've seen more of a stronger emphasis about getting a certain vibe to Daredevil, a certain flavor, if you will. Like, there's just that grittiness that comes out with it, and really taking it back to him being a street vigilante. Because I mean, we've had times where he's almost had like an armor instead of a costume. There's a lot of stuff in the 90s.
Oh, it was the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I like I say, I know there's one storyline I don't like where.
Did he have pouches? Did he have lots of pouches?
He might have.
He needs more
like
pouches.
I say, it might have happened, but no. But like I say, there's a couple storylines that are coming to my head. But like I say, I'm more focused on where we really picked up, because I think at that point, that's why you saw Kevin Smith come in and you saw Joe Quesada take over, because they're big Daredevil fans and know it's capable. And then to see the runs after, and Daredevil has pretty much been Marvel's best book, in my opinion, for quite some time. I mean, it's rivaled right now by Ultimate Spider-Man.
So would you say that Daredevil is more of you're saying it's one of Marvel's best books, but it's still a bit of a sleeper as far as the general public is concerned?
That's a great question. I would say this. I think if you are into comics, you know how good the book is.
But if you are just someone,
if you're pop culture, I think you're getting exposed to it now because of the Netflix show.
Agreed.
Because what they did, and they were smart, is they copied the Frank Miller stuff early.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank's Born Again, the actual Born Again series,
yep,
it's one of the greatest comic stories ever written. If you borrow it and you hit those elements on your show, you're going to connect with that audience. And they really tied in a lot of that feel into the show, and that's why it connects so well, because it's not so much a superhero story. Sure, there's powers and X, Y, and Z, but on the big scale, it's very grounded where it makes sense.
Yeah.
So
no, I know exactly where you're going with it.
Yeah. So I would say pop culture is understanding it, and that's why it took them a little more by surprise. But if you're a comic reader, you've known the capability that they could do with this book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing about when it goes from, like I say, the swashbuckling era of Daredevil to Born Again, and how dark and gritty things get. And then, obviously things kind of go up and down, in my opinion. It is what it is. But I think when you get to that Kevin Smith, Joe Quesada start, and then you kind of move into the different eras that have been written after.
Yep.
And just see how the creative teams have really put Matt Murdock through hell, literally. That's where you see why this character is so great and why it connects so much to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing that on the show, because there's a lot of those creative teams influencing what you're seeing in those early episodes of Born Again. even like I would say, more so the first and third seasons of Netflix Daredevil. Second one is good though. I don't want to take anything away from
Yeah.
that, but you see more of that influence. And when you can draw upon that influence, that's what makes that show hit.
Absolutely.
Because like I say, it's when you try adding too much to it that it doesn't. And this one, like I say, they're borrowing a lot. Like we talked about the Charles Soule and Ron Garney run. We talked now at Brubaker and David Ha. They're borrowing a little bit here and there. They're kind of, dabbling here or there and making things work, but they're making it gel. But they're making it gel. Like that's the thing.
Absolutely.
Because we've seen times before. Batman versus Superman. Let's be honest. Death of Superman, Dark Knight Returns doesn't work.
No,
can't do it.
You can't.
This works. It makes sense. It's little stories, but it adds up to a big monster one.
Absolutely. They've played. They're like they say in model making. They're kit bashing.
Yeah, but like I say,
in the right way.
Yeah, but there's so much great material, and especially from that late 90s to now. Like there's a lot of great stories you can dabble in and really translate to the small screen, and it works. So as long as they're following that formula, this show's going to be a big hit. And that's why this story is really kind of gaining some steam, kind of bringing it all back. Because sure, you see it on TV, you think one thing, but then if they want to go this route, which they are planting enough seeds for, this could work on that small screen.
But they're also not railroading it either.
Yeah.
And that is also a key sign of good writing, because I like it when a story is like, oh, we're going to screw it.
Yeah. Well, if they want to really, like I say, instantly on the show, they 15 minutes in, threw everybody off.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah. Hashtag thanks, Pat. But when now you see where they're borrowing from, it's definitely an element they can go with. And it makes perfect sense. Because as we go, we see that Elektra has put out the save on Foggy. He doesn't know how to handle this. And it's almost that what do we do now? But he's getting told, yeah, the agent that turned on you, Pullman, yeah, you won't see him again. When they search him, they'll find out he's a traitor.
Yep.
You're safe now because the men that were looking for you was mafia. But, you're safe because, my mistress says so. So, like I say, he's thinking Elektra. It could be Vanessa, though. But I think it's Elektra, though, in this situation.
I would say so, too.
Yeah, but the fact that she was behind all this, that's where things really kind of come into play.
Mm-hmm. And then one other great thing that I loved about this is, and I was saying to Ken just before we went on here, this last page, which is the last panel all the way, again, to the right, because this is apparently how it's running this week. You'll notice as he's finally coming to terms with everything with his handler, we have a lot more light in. We have, more windows, more panels, more window panes open. And that, like I said earlier, where it's 2/3 one way and 1/3 another way, this one's almost half and half when you think about it in that final panel.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Foggy is still messed up. He is still coming to terms with it, but you can see that he's in, these pages, he's finally coming to better terms with it. I don't think he's always going to be right with it, but he's got to at least be okay-ish with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he has to do. And that's one thing that we really need to do. Like I say, I don't want to spoil a lot about the series, though, because we have to remember, if I just say this was during the time of Secret Invasion, that I don't want to ruin that, because I know that was going to hamper on your grade for this. We have to remember, though, with how this is set up, it's all about Foggy and where it goes, because like we say, we know Vanessa, set this up, because she's the one responsible. Because when he goes sees Matt in prison, this is when he gets killed, allegedly. So this is how he gets taken in here. So it is an interesting play that they do, and especially to see that last panel pop up on screen. So there is a lot of elements that do go down with this.
Yeah.
But like I say, you have to really read the entire run to get the gist of it. But for where we're bringing it into, it's a great standalone issue.
Absolutely.
So knowing that and knowing where we're going in the show, possibly, it does make a lot of sense. But we'll keep it right now back to the book. We talked about a lot of great things about this book.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything you didn't like about this book?
I don't really think there was any real downsides to it. I think that the internal monologuing was great. I think that if I would have picked this book up as is, which I had, maybe understanding, maybe give me a few panels in the beginning to kind of give me a heads up of last time on Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my only tiny gripe, and that's just unfortunate for me because I hadn't, read 87. So that's all I got.
Yeah. See, if you read that, you get a little more, insight about what is going on. But I think for this, I mean, there really wasn't a lot of bad. I think you really stretched out about what is going on with Foggy and kind of gave him an insight of what's going on. Because with Matt being in prison at the time, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts that are happening, but he escapes to clear his name. But Foggy
You
is
son of a gun.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's why I say I held back on a little things for this. So that's why I say I was kind of teasing around. So if you read this run, you know. But in this, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
bastard.
I got Tom on air. That's my job. I got him. But that being said, though, I definitely want to get everybody's grade about this. Tom, I'll start with you because obviously with what you read here, what is your grade out of 10? Give it to me about The Secret Life of Foggy Nelson.
Context out from this
Yes.
jerk. It's still either way a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. This book is a very, very solid 9. I mean, Brubaker and Ha really captured the emotion of Foggy Nelson and where his mind state is. Because we have to remember, Matt was in prison, escaping as clear as name. Vanessa is the one pulling the strings about this. And they are dabbling in all of this. So to think about how this is all set up, it's wearing a toll on Foggy, and to kind of get that insight into a character that we don't get to see that often per se.
Mm-hmm.
It really kind of grounds a lot of elements that are floating in the air, meaning the relationship between Matt and Foggy, what Foggy's willing to do for his friend. And we've seen this on the show, and that's why it connects so well, because when you see this come to light, it really goes to say, hey, this is more than just an average working relationship. And I think Eldon Henson's characterization of Foggy on the show really brings that home to the audience. And I think that's why it makes his quote unquote death so impactful. And I think that when fans see how this plays out, because I think they're going to tie in a lot of this into season 2, I think this is really going to throw a nice curveball to fans when we see him come back. And I don't think anybody's going to be mad, because I think if they do this issue for a standalone episode next season, I think this is going to be a big bucket of win. And I'm throwing that out there right now. So you heard it here first, that they're going to do this as a standalone episode next season on Daredevil. I'm making my bold ODPH prediction here.
Oh, that is one hell of a lock and leap.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because I think they're going to do it, and I think they're going to throw everybody off. And I think that you're going to see why this book is a 9 on the small screen, and you're going to see some powerful performances. You're going to have some characters get swapped in and out, though. I don't know if we're necessarily going to see Elektra pop up. I think we will see the Hand. I think we're going to have more of a Shield involvement, but it's still going to make a lot of sense. And it's still going to be one that we are going to be talking about here on Turn a Page, as well as all over Nerd Initiative, because we have some great videos up right now.
Oh my God.
Breaking everything down. Thomas Craig is crushing it right now.
Yep.
Megan's got some great videos up. Matt and Lauren. The whole team here at Nerd Initiative is all about Daredevil Born Again. And if you want to get that great coverage, that's where you tune in for, because we got articles coming, we got videos coming, and we have something very special for the season finale I'm not allowed to talk about yet. So,
yes, but before that, you know what else we got?
What's up?
It was Ken's birthday this past week. That's right. Happy birthday, Ken.
See, he's throwing me off before we go to the show, even though it's taking a little while to upload. So I'm kind of scared what he's doing.
It's just a birthday cake.
Well, I do appreciate it, though, because obviously there's a lot of well wishes this weekend. So definitely thank you to everybody who's shooting them in on social media. It means a lot to hear it. And, like I say, it's a great week to go celebrate as well, because there's a lot of great shows that are going to be coming out. And more importantly, a lot of great comics. And to Tom's right, there is one that we definitely have no problem hyping up, because this is one of the first 4 that are coming out from Image Comics and the Massive Verse, and that is Rogue Sun 25. So definitely make sure you go check this out, and you go check out all the great reviews that are coming from the hardest working team in comics reviewing, because nobody does New Comic Book Day like Nerd Initiative. And Mickey, you had better have me that Battle Cat. I'm holding you to it, because kicking off, like we say, every single new comic book day. The bullpen has got reviews dropping. 30 are on deck for tomorrow.
Yep.
And if you want to know what you should be picking up from Marvel, you want to pick up from DC, Image, Dark Horse, Boom, Mad Cave, we have got the best of the best lined up to talk about. And this week is like one of the most stacked weeks, I think, on record.
I don't think I did anything below like an 8.5, if that.
Possibly. Like I say, this week was real. Like the first 4 was tough to pick.
Yeah.
Like that's how good this week is at the comic shops. So if you want to go check that out, you definitely want to check out what the bullpen is doing and let us know what you pick up at the shops. We always like to have that interaction with everybody too, because there's so much great stuff out at the LCS. So definitely make sure you go check that out. Also, make sure you're subscribed to Nerd Initiative on YouTube, because then you get to see such great programming as Turn a Page. You get to see great programming like Play for Keeps.
That's right.
Which is doing a March Madness like nobody else.
The Masters of the Universe, March Madness. Make sure to follow us on all the other social medias. Put in your votes. We have 8 brackets coming up, 4 villains, 4 good guys. Who is your favorite iteration of certain characters? And trust me, when we get down to March 31st, where we have a very special guest coming on, we're going to break it all down. And you're just going to just be like, by the power of Grayskull, just, yeah, just going nuts. We're not saying who the special guest is. It just says it.
Yeah.
That we have a special guest, and he's very special.
He's a fantastic guest. I know who it is, and I'm not spoiling that. But if you want to make sure you follow, just hit that subscribe button, and you won't miss out on it. That's how simple that is. And then last but certainly not least, make sure to go check out the home of pop culture positivity, because if you like the articles you're seeing on the website, they're all over social media. That's the place they come from. You want to know the links to go check out us on Twitch, Kick, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. It's all right there. And especially if you want to enter that Massiveverse giveaway, Facebook is the place you need to sign up, and you're going to see a lot of stuff coming there. The video's up right now, so you want to make sure you go check that out. But it all comes to you from the home of pop culture positivity, because we have a monster 2025 on deck, and you don't want to miss what is coming from us. So that being said, we gave you a great book to go check out at the comic shops this week. We're going to be talking Daredevil Born Again all through the social medias throughout the week, because obviously a big episode is dropping tonight as we're recording. So that being said, Tom, I think there's only one less thing to do. When you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hands, such as Daredevil 88
Or Rogue Sun.
or Rogue Sun 25, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next week.
I'm out.